On Thursday, October 3rd, 2019, at 1:10 p.m., the Detroit Fire Department responded to the report of a vacant dwelling fire in the area of Whitaker and Mulane. During firefighting operations, a partial collapse of the structure occurred, resulting in the serious injury of 3 firefighters. Rapid intervention to remove the trapped firefighters were executed. In all, 5 firefighters were transported by Detroit EMS to Detroit Receiving Hospital. The Detroit Arson Task Force responded to the scene and began investigating the incident. After a massive search for information, witnesses were discovered that identified a suspicious vehicle in the area shortly before the fire. Nearby video surveillance footage was also discovered, which showed the suspect partially identified the vehicle he was driving when he set the fire. The Arson Task Force quickly identified the suspect and set up a surveillance operation to locate him, and by 10 p.m., they had the suspect located and in custody. I'm going to continue to another meritorious event which occurred 5 days later. On Tuesday, October the 8th, 2019, at approximately 7:38 p.m., the Detroit Fire Department responded to 9544 Brace for a commercial box alarm in an apartment building. Shortly after companies arrived, Detroit Police Scout 6'8" arrived on the scene and was met by one of the occupants, who told officers that he was inside of apartment 205 and escaped the fire. He further stated to the officers that his mother and sister were still inside of the apartment. Scout 6'8" notified firefighters, who rescued both victims. Medic 3 conveyed both victims to Grace Hospital, but they later perished as a result of their injuries. Investigators of the Detroit Arson Task Force arrived on scene and began to canvass the area and spoke with witnesses who provided formal statements. Witnesses were found that stated they heard the suspect threaten to burn down the apartment earlier that day and shortly before the fire. Based on their information, the suspect was identified and a massive search was initiated. Shortly thereafter, the suspect contacted P.O. Hocradle and made arrangements to present himself at the Detroit Public Safety Headquarters. On Wednesday, October 9th, 2019, at 11 a.m., the suspect arrived and was promptly placed under arrest. In these cases, 2 arsonists were removed from the streets of Detroit. One suspect has been charged with arson first degree, a charge punishable by up to life in prison, and the other has been charged with 2 counts of felony murder and 2 counts of arson in the first degree. These incidents illustrate the professionalism and expertise exercised by this unit and their dedication to the citizens of the city of Detroit. Hopefully their actions will bring a degree of justice to the injured firefighters and the family of the 2 civilians that perished. Let's give them a round of applause.
Will the following members please come up as I call your name? Captain Winston Farrell. Captain Omar Davidson. Captain Dennis Richardson. Lieutenant Matthew Crouch. Lieutenant Joseph Crandall. Lieutenant Jamel Mayers. Lieutenant Andrew Schwetler. Lieutenant John Davis. Lieutenant Theodore Copley. Lieutenant Charles Matter. Lieutenant Sylvan Triggs. From Police, Sergeant David Sanders. Detective Robert Holmes. Detective Kathy Wright. Police Officer Jermaine Owens. Police Officer Sean Hocradle. Police Officer Michael Davis. Police Officer Jonathan Hall. And Police Officer Edward Cheser. ATF Special Agents Michael Stasi. And Special Agent Andrea Rossman. And her supervisor, Terry Schenke, will accept on her behalf.
Okay, can you guys come in and take a group photo?
Come on over here, guys, in the front. Just keep your short. Stassi, Whoa. Stand up during this picture.
Let's give this team another round of applause. (14-426) Wilshire, dwelling fire. At 09:10 hours on October 4th, 2019, engines 46, 52, 60, ladder 23, squad 6, and chief 9 were dispatched for a dwelling fire at 14-426 Wilshire Street. While en route, companies were advised of multiple people trapped. Engine 46 and chief 9 arrived and advised central office of a working fire and confirmed that 4 people were indeed trapped. Engines 52, 60, ladder 23, and squad 6 arrived immediately after. Before lines were charged, members entered the dwelling in search of the trapped occupants. As members were searching for the 4 occupants on the inside, other members noticed 3 of those occupants hanging out of an upstairs window with thick black and acrid smoke pushing out from behind them, and fire blazing out of the window on the first floor below them. Firefighters on the inside removed 1 occupant quickly down the interior stairs as she refused to exit through the window. 2 firefighters on the outside were able to rescue the 2 remaining occupants still at the window using a ground ladder, and all 3 of the occupants were handed off to medics 15 and 24. But there was still 1 occupant unaccounted for. As the interior search continued, the 4th occupant was located inside the dwelling on the first floor, unresponsive with agonal respirations. This occupant was quickly removed from the dwelling and was also handed off to the medics for treatment and transport. All members on this dwelling fire performed quickly and professionally to ensure all occupants were located and removed without regard for their own safety or well-being. At the time of hospital transport, all civilians were alert and still breathing on their own. Had it not been for the actions of the Detroit Fire Department, these civilians would have certainly suffered a much different outcome. In addition, the following members were also being recognized for their individual efforts at this fire scene: Sergeant Sean McDonald, firefighter driver Myron Mayberry, firefighter McEwen, firefighter Gesquire, and firefighter Keith Watkins. Sergeant Sean McDonald.
Let's get a picture with him first.
Okay.
Chicolas.
Captain John Chicolas. Firefighter Richard Dudas. Firefighter Justin LaFata. Firefighter driver FFD Alan Lynchman.